We're diving into something that's got everyone talking in the online learning world, apprendizagem.
Yeah, it's one of those things that's kind of been buzzing around.
It does feel like one of those buzzwords,
Yeah,
but it seems like there's some real substance behind it, right?
there is. There is. And I think one of the things that's really fascinating about Aprendizagem is it's been quietly revolutionizing classrooms, especially in Portuguese-speaking countries.
Oh, interesting.
And it's starting to gain traction, kind of across the globe, which is really exciting.
So give us the lowdown. What is it about apprendizagem that has people so excited?
Well, at its heart, Aprendizagem is really about flipping the script on traditional education, right? You think about that traditional model, the sage on the stage, where you've got the teacher lecturing at the front of the classroom and the students are just passively taking notes. Aprendizagem completely flips that.
Yeah.
It puts the learner front and center. So imagine a classroom where the teacher is more like a guide and the students are actively involved in constructing their own knowledge through hands-on experiences.
So it's not just about using technology for technology's sake.
Yeah.
It's really about using it to support this deeper, more engaging, I guess, more constructivist way of learning.
Absolutely. I mean, Aprendizagem is deeply rooted in those principles of constructivism, right?
Yeah.
That idea that we learn best not by passively absorbing information, but by actively doing, by exploring, by experimenting, and really making connections ourselves.
I mean, it's kind of like, the difference between reading about how to bake a cake and actually getting your hands dirty in the kitchen,
Exactly.
right? Like you can read about it all you want, but until you actually do it, until you maybe mess up a few times, you don't really learn it.
Right. You don't internalize it. And that's what's so cool about Aprendizagem, because it takes these really powerful constructivist principles and it seamlessly integrates them with the power of digital tools. And we're not just talking about, using PowerPoint in the classroom or something. We're talking about virtual reality, simulations, adaptive learning platforms, all of these really incredible tools that are out there.
Yeah, you're speaking my language. Okay, so how does this actually play out in the classroom?
Yeah, so the deep dive today is centered around this article that we read, and they highlighted 3 key areas where digital tools can really supercharge this Aprendizagem approach.
Okay.
And those were enhancing engagement and interaction, creating personalized learning paths, and then fostering collaboration and communication.
So let's start with that first one, engagement. That's something I think that anyone who's ever taught anything, whether it's little kids or adults, like keeping people engaged, especially in a digital space, it's a real challenge.
Yeah.
So how does Aprendizagem tackle that?
Well, imagine this. Instead of just reading about the Roman Colosseum in a textbook,
Yeah.
your students can put on a VR headset and suddenly they're standing in the center of that arena.
Wow. Talk about bringing history to life.
Right.
I mean, no more, kids kind of zoning out in the back of the class.
Mhm.
Like when you can practically feel the roar of the crowd, you're going to pay attention.
Right. And it's not just, these flashy visuals. Think about like a biology student who's trying to understand the complexities of the human heart. Well, VR can allow them to virtually hold a beating heart in their hands, dissect it layer by layer. It just takes their understanding to a whole new level.
Okay, I'm sold on the power of engagement.
Yeah.
But what about personalized learning? That's another one where, I'll be honest, it feels a bit like a pipe dream sometimes,
Yeah.
Like, how do you actually cater to the individual needs of every single student, especially when we're talking about a digital environment?
That is the million-dollar question. And this is where adaptive learning technologies really come into play.
Okay.
You can think about these platforms almost like personalized guides for each student that adjust to their pace and their unique learning style.
So no more like, being bored to tears in the back of the class because the teacher's going on and on about something that you already understand.
Yeah.
Or conversely, being completely lost because they're going too fast.
Right, exactly.
It adapts.
Yeah.
So how does it actually work, though? Let's say, like, I'm learning algebra
Sure.
online.
Okay.
What would that look like in an adaptive learning platform?
So let's say you're working through those algebra problems. The platform can actually track your progress in real time.
Oh, wow.
It can identify your strengths and your weaknesses, and then it can actually tailor the content and the difficulty level to match exactly where you're at.
Oh, that's cool.
So if you're breezing through those equations, it's going to challenge you with some more advanced concepts. But if you're hitting a wall, let's say, you just can't wrap your head around a certain concept, it'll provide extra support and practice right when you need it most.
It's like having a personal tutor for every student,
Exactly.
constantly monitoring their understanding and providing that just-in-time support.
And that level of personalized attention can make all the difference, not just in, their actual learning, but in helping them build that confidence and really achieve their full potential.
Yeah, I can see that.
But here's the thing. Apprenticegem doesn't stop at individual learning.
Okay.
It also recognizes the power of collaboration and communication.
Right. Because even with all the amazing technology we have at our disposal, like we're still social creatures.
Well, absolutely.
We thrive on that connection, that shared experience. So how do you foster that collaborative spirit in a digital space?
So it's about creating those virtual spaces where students can connect with each other, where they can communicate, where they can actually learn from each other, regardless of where they are physically.
Okay.
So think like shared documents where they can all work together in real time, or online forums where they can have these vibrant discussions and debates.
So it's not just about, the typical, okay, get into groups and work on this project kind of collaboration.
No, it's much more organic than that.
Yeah.
It's really about creating this community of learners. Imagine, for example, a group of students on a platform like Edmodo, and they're all working together. Let's say they're creating this project about ancient Rome. They're not just sharing files back and forth. They're debating different interpretations of historical events. They're constructing knowledge together, and the teacher is there to guide them as a facilitator.
Right. It's that whole idea that, two heads are better than one.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And this actually ties into a really important educational theory called Vygotsky's zone of proximal development.
Oh, yeah, I've heard of that.
Yeah, and it basically means that we learn best when we're collaborating with others who maybe have a little bit more knowledge or expertise than we do. So, it's like that moment when you're working on a puzzle with friends and someone finally figures out where that last piece goes. You have that collective aha moment and you learn from each other in the process.
Oh, for sure.
And digital tools, what they do is they provide that platform to replicate these really powerful collaborative experiences in a way that can transcend those physical boundaries, which is really exciting.
It sounds amazing in theory, but I do have to ask, the article must have addressed some of the challenges, right? Because it seems like whenever you try to do something new, especially in education, there are always, bumps in the road.
It did, yeah. I mean, they didn't shy away from some of the real hurdles that we need to be thinking about. Like, one that immediately came to mind for me was the whole issue of the digital divide.
Right.
It's great to talk about VR headsets and, fancy software, but what about those students who don't even have reliable internet access at home? Absolutely. And I think that's a really important point that you bring up because we can't even begin to talk about the potential of something like Aprendizagem without acknowledging those very real issues of equity.
Right.
And the article really emphasized the importance of, how do we bridge that gap? How do we make sure that all students have equal opportunities to benefit from these approaches?
So it's not just about the technology itself, it's about using it thoughtfully and inclusively.
Exactly.
And I guess that kind of leads into another challenge that the article mentioned, which was teacher preparedness. I imagine it takes a certain skill set to facilitate this kind of learning, right?
Yeah, you can't just hand a teacher, a bunch of iPads and say, okay, go forth and
Yeah.
create this amazing, engaging learning environment. It's not magic. Teachers need support. They need professional development. They need training on how to effectively integrate these technologies, how to troubleshoot when things inevitably go wrong. But I think most importantly, they need that training on how to use these tools to really support the core principles of Aprendizagem.
It's about empowering teachers, not overwhelming them with something that feels like a burden. Okay, so we've talked about the digital divide, we've talked about teacher preparedness, but there's another challenge that I think we have to address here, and the article touched on it as well, which is distraction.
Right.
It's the elephant in the room. Like, we've got all this great technology, but how do we make sure that students are using it to actually learn and not just, scrolling through TikTok or whatever the latest social media app is?
Yeah. Yeah, it's a constant battle, right? And it's something that as educators and as parents, we need to be very mindful of. The article suggested, setting clear expectations for students, designing activities that are really going to leverage the engaging aspects of those technologies while minimizing those distractions, maybe even incorporating, some good old-fashioned digital citizenship lessons into the mix.
Right, like teaching them good digital habits from the get-go.
Absolutely.
So it's all about finding that balance, right? harnessing the power of this technology,
Yeah.
but not letting it completely take over. We want to make sure that we're still grounded in those core principles of what makes good teaching and learning. So how do we bring this all together? Where do we even begin if we want to start implementing some of these Aprendizagem ideas?
Well, the good news is that the article offered some really practical strategies.
Okay, good.
One that I thought was particularly interesting was this idea of really intentionally aligning those digital tools that we choose with the constructivist principles that we've been talking about.
So it's not just about using technology for technology's sake, but being really intentional with those tools.
Right, exactly. So instead of, let's say just having students read an article about climate change, a
Mhm.
teacher might use a platform like Minecraft Education Edition and have them actually collaboratively build and analyze different climate scenarios in the game.
Oh, that's cool.
It's about finding those tools that allow students to be creators, to be collaborators, to be problem solvers. Right.
So they're not just passively consuming information, but they're actually constructing their own understanding.
Exactly. And then I think, the article emphasized this as well. It's this idea of ongoing reflection and adaptation. What works for one group of students in one context might not work for another.
Right.
And so it's about being flexible, experimenting, constantly seeking out ways to improve.
It sounds like more than anything, Aprendizagem is a mindset.
I think that's a great way to put it. It's a learner-centered approach that really embraces technology as this powerful tool for fostering deeper engagement, for personalizing learning, and for making collaboration more meaningful. And it's about creating these learning experiences that are both challenging and empowering for everyone involved.
And I think that's a great place to leave it today. But it does bring up, I think, a bigger question for all of us, no matter where we are in our learning journey. How can we take these principles, these insights, into how people learn best? And apply them not just in the classroom, but in all areas of our lives. Whether it's, professional development, online courses, even just the way that we approach personal growth in this digital age.
That's what I think we all need to be thinking about. These ideas have implications far beyond the traditional classroom.
Food for thought.
Absolutely.
Well, on that note, we'd love to hear from you. Have you experimented with Aprendizagem? What resonates with you? Head over to our social media pages and share your thoughts. Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep diving deep.